For over 1,000 years, Western civilization has been stuck in a dark age of sexual repression and misinformation. We get an oversexed overload from the media, but nothing in the way of honest, helpful, practical information on sex and how to do it right. That sucks, and I'm fucking sick of it. My name's JV Altheras, and I've spent a couple decades learning everything I can about how to have amazing sex and more of it. Not in a classroom like a lot of people who talk about sex. I learned it all in the gutter, right where Mom told me I'd end up. It's my mission to bring an end to the sexual dark age with brutally honest talk and education on all aspects of sex and sexuality, in an atmosphere that will keep you entertained without treating you like an idiot. Shara and I are not doctors. Certifiable, perhaps, but not certified in any way. And that means we don't have to talk about vaginas and penises to maintain academic credibility. You got a problem with a vagina? Call a gynecologist. You want to learn more about pussies and cocks and how to make them happy? You've come to the right place. Ending the Sexual Dark Age is now sponsored by the internet's most trusted name in adult toys. A happy pussy likes to play more often. AdamandEve.com is offering you guys half off on your choice of thousands upon thousands of vibrators and dildos and cock rings and strap-ons, nipple clamps, porn DVDs, butt plugs, pocket pussies, anything else you can imagine to either get yourself off or have some fun with your playmate. As always, we highly recommend making sex toys part of your sex life, and right now, AdamandEve.com is only asking for one chance to impress you. They're offering an awesome deal in support of ending the sexual dark age, and the whole thing goes a little like this. By typing Dark Age, all one word, for the offer code at checkout, you will get 50% off the most expensive item in your cart, with a few exceptions, free shipping, 3 free porn DVDs, and a sexy free mystery gift. Free DVDs are selected randomly and added to your order before they ship. AdamandEve.com is willing to damn near pay you to get off. So stop by, enter DARKAGE at checkout, and proceed to collect on an awesome deal. Or just follow one of the links on sexualdarkage.com. And if you like surfing on your smartphone, be sure to check out Adam and Eve's new mobile site. Yes, you too can buy dildos right from your iPhone now, thanks to Adam and Eve. Welcome to episode 40, part 2 of our beginner's guide to sexual dominance. In episode 38, we talked about headspace, and this time we'll be covering how to start expressing your dominance without freaking out your playmate. As time goes on, we'll be talking in depth about various aspects of kinky play, from asphyxiation to wax play, but for now we're going to focus on a bare bones approach to taking your first few steps as a dominant. Like episode 38, and probably most of our kinky topics moving forward, for the sake of convenient pronouns, I'll be referring to dominance in the masculine and submissives in the feminine. As I'll continue to remind you, kinky play can bring about amazing depths of trust and connection between playmates. But your best bet, especially in an established vanilla relationship, is to move forward one calculated step at a time. Once you choose to identify yourself as a sexual dominant, kinky play becomes a lot like a game of chess or any other strategy game that might entertain you. The first thing to understand is that you do not need any toys. You don't need to go out and buy anything, and for a newbie dom who's probably playing with a newbie sub, a vast array of toys can just be intimidating and confusing. Bondage play requires some props for actual restraints, but you can get by with things you've already got laying around the house. Paddles and floggers can help keep your hands from feeling like raw meat the next day, but your kitchen is full of stuff just waiting to have its lot in life elevated in ways that would make MacGyver proud. But when it comes right down to it, a clever dom needs no toys at all, because dominance and submission are all in the head. There can be as much overlap with bondage, discipline, and sadomasochism as you like, but I suggest getting started with nothing more than the tools you were born with. Most people with dominant tendencies aren't lacking anything more than a few slick moves to help get them started, and those moves are a big part of what this episode is all about. Even though we talk a lot about explicit communication and discussion of limits, all that is more for pushing boundaries than opening the door to kink in the first place. Kinky sex is just sex with more options, and that means that your first steps towards kinky play are simple little things that fall well within the natural boundaries of enthusiastic fucking. You don't have to have some big awkward conversation with your playmate about whether or not you'd like to try a little bit of something kinky. You just have to do it. Specifically, as the dominant, you have to do it. The role of the dom is that of a leader, commander, and caretaker. By choosing to express sexual dominance, you're taking responsibility for the emotional and physical well-being of your submissive, and that means buying the whole package. Knowing what your sub wants before she does is the root of the dominance power. You establish that power through experimentation and observation, and if you're a new dom playing with an inexperienced sub, you can start experimenting before she even realizes there's a game afoot. If you don't do it already, you need to start forcing her to talk about what she likes and doesn't after you play. This is something you need to do for a lot of reasons, and as the Dom, it's your responsibility to make it happen. I suggest a question and answer format with you asking questions, definitely while you can see her face, preferably within an hour or two of when you finish fucking. A simple question like, "So, did you like it when I was biting your shoulder?" accomplishes several important things. Obviously, the response will tell you whether she liked it or not. Yes, a giggle with refusal to make eye contact counts as a yes. Next, her facial expressions while you're talking will help you learn how to read visual cues during play. That face she makes when she's talking about the things she didn't like should be burned into the back of your skull, because that's the face that tells you to ease up or change direction before she says anything about it. Like you can read her mind or something. Also, nothing makes communication easier than more communication. Honest, open dialogue about sex and what each of you like is important all around for good sex, but you can't have healthy kink without it. Plus, the fact that you're asking specific questions in the first place also establishes and reinforces that you care about her pleasure and that you're trying to figure out how to give her more of it. This is essential to build trust and earn her submission. Lastly, asking a question and demanding an answer is a fundamentally dominant thing to do. So talking about play in a question and answer format helps to establish your sexual dominance, and all without you having to announce that you want to dominate her. As a bonus, this will also help you find some solid footing regarding the kinks that you're really into, and knowing your own desires is just as important as knowing hers. You may not realize it yet, but over time you're probably going to find yourself especially turned on by the things that turn her on. As far as the first step, that's easy. When a dominant wants something that's within his reach, he fucking takes it. The submissive's limits define what's within reach, but inside those limits, the Dom can take total control. I'm going to go through a little bit of a list of smooth moves for beginners to help you test the waters with your potential submissive and give you the advantage of starting a catalog of what kind of kink she might be up for, all without blowing your cover. In order to make these work, you need to take a step back from the joy of sex to become a student of your potential submissive's reactions, from the noises she makes to facial expressions. Grab your lab coat, and maybe your raincoat, because it's time to dive into the science of smut. The more you can learn about what turns her on and what's working for her just by observing, the more she'll feel like you can read her mind, and the more sexual power you'll have over her. Repeated good experiences, even with light play, also start building the trust that's required for the submissive to totally give up control down the line. You'll also be starting the process of training her to have positive emotional reactions to kink. The advanced aspects of this will be for a future episode, but for now, I'll say that Pavlov was a fucking genius. Genius! Human beings are ridiculously trainable, and that's a conclusion dominants will naturally come to after they try training a few of them. Pavlov's most famous experiment involved his dog. He'd ring a bell every time he fed the dog. After a while, the dog associated the sound of the bell with food to the extent that just ringing the bell with no food involved would make the dog salivate. This is the root concept of Pavlovian training, which can also be called associative training, and it works just as well on humans as it does on dogs. When the mind repeatedly experiences two stimuli at the same time, it draws a hard association between those two stimuli. Hear a bell ring while you're eating enough times, and the bell will make you salivate. Get your hair pulled while you're having an orgasm enough times, getting your hair pulled becomes a huge turn-on. Yes, there are many women walking the face of this earth who, if you pull their hair just right, their pussies will instantly get wet. This is the emotional and mental side of turning pain into pleasure and degrading language into a turn-on. And even though the example's a bit oversimplified, I think it makes the point. So, to start evaluating and training your submissive, it's best to begin with some moves that aren't kinky enough to raise alarm bells, even in a totally vanilla sex situation. Bear in mind that every positive reaction is a pretty solid indication that you can push a little farther, 1 inch at a time. Bondage is all about being tied up, tied down, or otherwise restrained. The lightest bondage is just using your hands to take control of your playmate in one way or another. I suggest a bunch of different moves that involve taking her hands while you're fucking. And when I say taking her hands, I mean interlacing fingers palm to palm. If you're fucking missionary, take her hands and hold them down on the bed. Make sure you're supporting your weight with your elbows on the mattress so you're not crushing her hands or forearms. If she tries to move her hands, don't let her, and wait for her to make eye contact. I promise she will, and when she does, give her a nice smile. The look on her face will tell you as much as the conversation the two of you have about it later. You can also throw her legs over your shoulders and take her hands while you're going down on her. You're not so much holding her down at this point, but you're still taking control of her hands. If you put her knees up to your chest while you're fucking and take her wrists, you'll have her in a position of total submission. Bondage and restraint are fundamentally about restricting movement and taking control of a submissive's body, and these are all ways to do that without taking out any actual restraints. Positive reactions mean you should be good to move on to some actual bondage. As I said earlier, you don't need to go out and buy restraints, but there are some advantages to having the right tools for the job if kinky play is going to stay on the menu. For starters, you can use anything that can be tied in a knot or buckled, and sometimes MacGyvering a set of restraints out of what's laying around can be an especially hot experience. I do not recommend handcuffs. They tend to dig in and leave ligature marks, plus being uncomfortable, plus the fact they can be accidentally over-tightened, which results in a flag on the play to loosen them, and it doesn't help the mood. Some people are predisposed towards handcuffs because they think having a pair is somehow more normal than owning proper restraints, or that, somehow, if somebody runs across a pair of handcuffs in the nightstand next to the dildos and the lube, they are magically not going to get the right idea. If you'd like some stealth restraints, the best option I've ever tried are some nice silk scarves. They're strong as hell, soft on the skin, and won't cause ligature marks even if your playmate likes to really fight against them. By the way, I'd encourage her to fight against the restraints if she wants to. Struggling and not getting free enhances her feeling of submission, and therefore your control. For someone timid about getting tied up with hard restraints, you might want to start with some of the beginner-level Velcro restraints that are sold at your friendly neighborhood dildo world. She can fight against them all she wants and not be able to break free, but if push comes to shove, they can be removed by somebody bound with them. So it's like having an emergency exit built in. Once you're up to restraints, I highly recommend a rule that you, as the dom, are the only person who puts them on or takes them off. In this way, the restraints become one more tangible reminder of your control and her submission. She retains the right to ask you to remove the cuffs, but never takes them off herself. It's also important to mention here that being tied up is an extremely vulnerable position that demonstrates a lot of trust. When you're playing with bondage, it's incredibly important to make sure that you are deserving of that trust at all times. If your playmate asks to be untied, do it without hesitating or even asking why. She's reached her limit on something that was going on, and maybe she can't even put it into words right in that moment, but it's time to stop the play and have a pleasant conversation about what happened so you can figure out why and so it doesn't happen again. Don't gloss over it or try to just move on with other play. Should deal with it right away. This goes for all types of kinky play, of course, but it is especially important with bondage, because the level of helplessness is more profound. Now we move on to hair pulling, which is kind of a gray area between pain play and bondage. Now I'm not talking about grab and yank. Hair pulling is a sensual art form when you're doing it right. A great beginner's move is to wait until you're already sucking face hot and heavy, then start caressing the back of her neck with your fingers. Gently but firmly take hold of her hair at the base of her skull and pull her head back so you can kiss her neck or nibble her ear or whatever. Then pull her head over to the other side and repeat. You're taking absolute control of where and how her head moves and doing it in a way that associates that experience with pleasure. The basic principle of hair pulling is that the more hair you've got hold of, the more distributed any force you apply is going to be. Pull on 10 hairs with a given amount of yank and you'll rip them out with a good bit of pain. Apply the same amount of force to an entire handful of hair and you've got sensual control. The two basic methods of grabbing a handful of hair are to either slide your hand up the back of her neck until your palm is approximately on her hairline and then close your hand into a loose fist, or pull her hair back into a ponytail configuration and hold onto the ponytail like a handle. With method 1, the amount that you clench your hand gives you amazingly precise control over how much force you're applying to the scalp, but sometimes you can end up pulling out a stray hair or two. The ponytail method is a better guarantee that the force will be evenly distributed. Really long hair can actually be braided into an awesome handle, but that's something for another time. I would have to see if Shara's got any pictures of that actually, because I know she used to. So with hair pulling, you get to try a whiff of pain play, but it's just as much, if not more, about taking control of the submissive by taking control of her head in a firm but gentle way. It's also a close relative of throat fucking for a male dom or face sitting for a female dom. To see if throat fucking is on the menu, like everything else, you start nice and easy. Next time she's sucking your cock, rest your hand on the back of her neck. Don't push your head down or anything, this is just an exploratory move. Some women have really bad reactions to having cock shoved down their throats, but if you got one of those, you can find out before you do anything that would actually upset her. If there's no negative response to your hand resting on her neck, start running your fingers through her hair and pull just a tiny bit when she's on the downstroke on her own. Then relax when she starts coming back up. Basically, pull her down a little bit, but don't hold her down at all. Then leave it at that until you talk about it later. If she likes it, get a little rougher next time and repeat until you find her limit. Giving instructions is another awesome way to explore submissive tendencies, and you don't need to do anything wacky to get started. Getting her accustomed to taking orders is as simple as a little perspective shift on your part. Natural submissives like being told what to do, and it's really easy to tap into that with a little patience and creativity. Instead of pushing her down on the bed and spreading her legs, tell her to lie on the bed and spread her legs. Instead of bending her over the back of the couch, lead her over to the back of the couch and tell her to bend over. Tell her to spread her legs so you can lick your pussy. Instead of taking her clothes off, have her strip one piece at a time at your instruction while you're watching, because she is just so fucking gorgeous when she's being a good girl and doing as she's told. I personally reserve the right to play with Shara's titties whenever I want. Well, I reserve the right to play with Shara's anything whenever I want, but I fairly regularly, like several times a day, make her flash her titties at me. There's no limit to how much fun you can have with this, as long as you take the time to reward good behavior by making it worth her while. It's as simple as giving her nipples a little affection whenever you make her whip them out, for example. If you're having good luck with the simple stuff, use your imagination. Next time you have to run to the store, tell her to be naked when you get back. The time after that, tell her to be naked in a certain location or position inside the house. Time after that, tell her she's getting fucked in whatever position she's in when you get back. Seriously, the mind boggles at all the possibilities, with a healthy undertone of rewarding good girls for doing as they're told. Talking dirty is another great tool for asserting dominance, especially telling her what you're going to do before you do it. Saying, "I'm going to throw you down and fuck you," forces her to decide whether she's going to object or go along with it. Every time she goes along with it, you create the mental association of you just deciding what you're going to do to her and then just doing it, thus reinforcing your dominance. Before long, "I need to use the bathroom first" will become, "Is it okay if I use the bathroom first?" And she might not even realize it. When it comes to pain play, I suggest starting with some nice, light pussy spanking. To flash back to episode 17, pain and pleasure travel the same paths and end up in the same part of the brain. You can use one to play off of the other, but turning pain into pleasure is another game where you gain ground an inch at a time. Try licking her pussy for a little while, then start teasing her clit with your finger, taking the time to give her entire pussy a few light slaps once in a while. I'm talking just like the weight of your hand landing on her pussy if you stop holding it up. Ask her if she likes it, and if she does, make her admit it out loud. By doing this, you're creating a fundamental association between pleasure and just the tiniest hint of pain, and building on your dominance at the same time. If you get a positive response, have her spread eagle so you can give her ass an occasional smack to mix it up, and pretty soon she'll be ready for her first big girl spanking. Another great exercise is the trusty old nipple squeeze. Get her off at least once and let her wind down from the orgasm. Then start squeezing nice and gentle and tell her to say something if you squeeze too hard. While doing this, make sure to give her some gentle attention like kissing her neck or playing with her ear. Add pressure on her nipples gradually until she says something, and when she does, you've found her current limit on nipple pinching. The trick here is that by taking her just to the point where there's more pain than pleasure, you have to take her right through the place where there's equal amounts of pain and pleasure, reinforcing the connection between the two to be explored later. The last thing I want to talk about before bringing Shara on is aftercare. Kinky play can be physically and emotionally intense, and submissives often experience a condition called subdrop after play. It's a kind of adrenaline and endorphin withdrawal, a crash after a high. It's not unusual for a submissive to feel physically cold or a little lethargic or a variety of other mild symptoms. One of your jobs as a dom is to take care of your toy after you're done playing with it. Make sure she's got a blanket if she needs one, and give her whatever kind of TLC she appreciates, like a foot rub or a back massage. Rub some lotion into the ass you just spanked black and blue. Gentle attention will help her come down nice and smooth instead of crashing, as well as making sure she knows that you appreciate her submission and that you value her. Don't forget that doms often need some aftercare of their own. We try to play big tough guys, we try to act like we're invincible, but while we do make sure that our subs get taken care of first, swinging a heavy flogger for 15 or 20 minutes is something you're going to fucking feel in the morning, I promise. So take care of your sub first, but don't neglect yourself, and doms are prone to adrenaline crashes just like subs are. You'll probably find that spending a little time giving your toy some aftercare will do the trick for your mental decompression, but that doesn't do the whole job for everybody, so just stay in tune with yourself. Welcome to the show, Dirty Whore.
Thank you.
Oh, look at you blushing already. Shit, that's like 3 times in a row.
It's not fair.
Trying to hide your face.
I am.
You know, I mentioned a little earlier in the episode when we were talking about communication and talking about play afterwards, which is something that's always good, but it's especially important that a dominant force that conversation. And I was thinking of you when I said to the audience earlier, yes, a giggle and a refusal to make eye contact counts as a yes, I liked it.
Now, see, why do you do that to me?
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
Generally, we're talking about this time the basics of some stuff like bondage and hair pulling, which, you know, I didn't talk about anything tonight that you don't love. Wow, look at the shit-eating grin on your face.
I'm just thinking about this weekend and how many different things we ended up doing this weekend that we normally have. Well, I've never done one of them. We've never done, so that was kind of cool.
Well, you got your hair pulled quite a bit.
I did. I'm talking about biting a little bit that you were doing, and
yeah, I did start doing some biting with you this weekend.
yeah, and it put goosebumps down my whole body. It was great. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go through some of the stuff I talked about in order to see if you've got anything to add. I was talking about getting started with bondage and especially MacGyvering restraints. Now, with I'm going to ask you to tap into your experiences with your Pink Mafia because I mean you're pretty much up for whatever, and you have been since before I met you. So we never really had that. You and I never really had that period where I was trying to get you into bondage for the first time. You know, you were already submissive when I picked you up off the side of the road. So,
you sure did. Okay, it wasn't really quite like on the side of the road, but.
No, it was a bar.
It was a bar. It was nice. But I mean, I knew I was meeting you at the bar. So
right. Still picked you up
hot.
at a bar.
You were hot.
And that our first date brings me to another topic for this episode, which is pussy spanking.
Oh, no. Did you talk about that? Oh.
Well, I didn't talk about the fact that I was spanking your pussy on our first date until right now, but it's not like this is something the audience has never heard before.
We didn't have sex, though.
No, we didn't.
No, didn't have sex.
No, I wasn't giving it up.
Nor was I.
Well, that worked out fine.
Didn't it, though?
Yeah, I stopped putting out on the first date quite a while before I got around to you.
Well, I could see why.
You know, good girls might get a little head, but you know, I wasn't whipping it out on the first date. But anyway, so look at you.
I'm just thinking about, knowing what is underneath the jeans now and all that. And I was like, wow, I was obviously turned on when I met you, and I was like, wow, he is really good looking and just ready to take me back. Go ahead. And, but I said, no, I got to have some restraint here. But thinking back, wow, I wasted a night.
But circling back around to the actual topic.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody.
So on the topic of bondage for absolute beginners, do you have any tips to give prospective doms out there, especially bad experiences you might have had with newer doms or just bondage in general, or any particularly bad experiences the girls in the Pink Mafia had?
Well, a couple things. I think that you covered everything extremely well. I sometimes feel like there's just like no ending on this conversation because there's so much.
Well, yeah, there really never is an ending, so we always try to hit the most relevant points to whatever we're talking about on a given day.
Right. But a couple things. One of them, a big issue was him not having enough experience, and she was not extremely experienced. So for a new dominant, part of their problem might be to get a submissive that has experience to want to give him a chance, because you'd almost have to have a switch at that point, a female or male that, depending on what you're into, that is willing to go play both parts, because a submissive who knows what she wants and has had the experience of being around dominance, they might be really attracted to you, but they crave that dominant submissive relationship. So a new dominant, it might be a little bit harder. So my suggestion would be very similar to what I talked to the girls in the Pink Mafia about, is get to know a mentor that can mentor you, and another dominant, such as yourself, might take someone that's new and interested in being a dominant underneath your wing, and you would teach them, possibly with me being involved, or possibly, just taking him to some local munches and introducing him to some good people.
Well, yeah, and I've included a lot of my slick moves and dirty tricks for beginners in this episode so far.
Wow, that must have been a long episode then.
Oh, it's not that long of an episode. We're just doing the basics. It's not like we're done talking about BDSM forever. When we're done with this episode, we're going to have the episodes about submission, and might do a BDSM-related interview. So, that's kind of more of what's coming up in the immediate future.
So that, and I also think that if they can find someone that's experienced, and that is local to them, find a submissive that's willing. That's why I say a switch, because I think that a switch that is willing to be a submissive also has an idea of what a dominant does. So might be able to play that role with them a little bit more and give them some guidance. But confidence, and you brought that up, you have to be confident in yourself, and sometimes that's hard to do when you're trying to be a dominant, and that's something new for you.
Oh yeah, you've got to
insecure.
Yeah,
about
you've got to establish your confidence, and that's the other thing that going one step at a time really helps with from the dominance perspective. Once you cover a given piece of ground with your playmate, you don't have to wonder about that particular item anymore. And so the more little pieces of ground that you cover, the more you start to kind of explore through experience, the more stable your footing for doing other kinky shit.
Exactly. And making sure you have a safe word so that, she or he is comfortable. So I think that's important especially when you're first starting out, or either of you are starting out, is to make sure that you have the safe word to protect each other, and just to, make sure that the communication is extremely open between each other.
Now, hair pulling.
Yes.
I gave a few tips on beginner hair pulling. As you know, it's one of my favorite activities.
It sure is. It sure is.
I like to believe that I'm rather good at it.
You are.
So what I covered for the audience was basic hair pulling techniques, how to introduce hair pulling to somebody who's never really played rough before. Now we might as well have some fun. We talked about method 1 of pulling hair, which is this one right here, grabbing the base of your scalp with my fist. And then we also talked about the second basic method of hair pulling, which is to put your hair in a ponytail and use it like a handle.
Oh, I was thinking more like a pony's tail.
So I can treat your mouth like a pussy with teeth.
Yes.
Without actually pulling your hair too hard.
Oh, look what you're doing.
Oh, nipple check.
Okay.
Titties. Woohoo! It's wonderful being able to play with titties whenever I want. So, are there any cautions you would like to give the aspiring dominants about hair pulling? Anything that I might not have covered?
Well, every submissive is different, so they may not care for a certain way. So, but I'm sure that you handled that pretty well, if I remember correctly. It's a matter of testing it, and what they like and what they don't like. And you're always very good about, how is this okay? And, checking, and you start off a little bit lighter and easier. And then if you know that I can handle it, then you go a little stronger. And
now, objective question for you. The way that I make you constantly admit how much you like what I'm doing to you, do you find that enhances your experience, or does that distract you? God, you don't want to answer this question.
Can you see it in my eyes? I do not want to answer this question.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of being able to read your submissive.
I hate when he can read me so well. I think that you even know, before you ask the questions, how I'm going to respond.
Well, I generally do, but I got to go through the motions. We're recording this and shit.
I know. It's just not right. What was the question again?
The question was, would you like to add anything to what I said on hair pulling, or give...
Oh, no, that one. I'm talking about the other question, which, okay, he forgot. So
Wait,
okay.
Which other question?
Never mind.
Spit it out. Oh, yes. See, you're distracting me with the laughter and the fucking giggles. Yes. Do you find it significantly enhances your experience as a submissive to be forced to talk about how much you like the things that I'm doing to you?
I hate it.
You're so lying.
I hate that I hate it. Well, let me go back a minute. When we talk afterwards.
Yes.
When it's during, I want to focus on, everything else. I don't want to focus on having to answer. I kind of want to just have fun with it all. But there are times like yesterday when we were having a little fun, you did ask me as we were going along and I was responding. So that part was okay. That way was good. It's when you make me talk about it. It's not just a, hey baby, how's it, how do you feel about this? Or how's this? Or it's more of a, so how'd you like that? And it's, I hate to say it this way, but that cocky side of you and the dominant side of you that comes out, that's just like, well, he knew I liked it. Why is he asking me that? Because he just wants to hear me say it.
Well, yeah, and I got to verify that you liked it.
And then you like to watch my face turn red.
Oh, it's awesome.
And then I giggle. So when people see me on Facebook and I put like a smirk or a giggle, that giggle really is, I'm usually giggling.
But true or false, when I do that to you, it enhances your feeling of submission and my control over you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And some people would consider that, and I'm still trying to figure that out about me, humiliation as a form of humiliation.
That definitely falls under the scope of humiliation.
And it does for me, especially when I enjoyed it, but you're going to make me tell you that I enjoyed it. And you know how hard that can be for me.
Well, I've got to remind you that I can make you admit it.
Yes, you do.
That's one of my jobs.
Oh, one of your jobs
that
you enjoy very much.
I do. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Another one of your favorite topics. The hair pulling kind of leads into throat fucking. Now, we know how much you enjoy getting skull fucked. Have you always enjoyed having your mouth used like a pussy with teeth, or is that something more recent?
I'm trying to think back a little bit because I didn't do it as often as you and I do it. So I love your cock. I don't know that if I was with somebody else that I would say that I would enjoy it as much. If we were with another couple or something or just another guy and he had a nice cock, I imagine I might enjoy it. Or just knowing that you're watching us or something, I might really enjoy that. But I really love your cock. So it's like fun for me. I love it.
Okay. So the throat fucking is not necessarily something you've enjoyed doing with a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah. No,
or is it that nobody else has decided to do it to you?
Well, I mean, in the vanilla world, okay, I mean, obviously I gave blowjobs because I like giving blowjobs.
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between giving a blowjob and getting skull fucked.
Yes. And that's the thing
and that's definitely what you like from me.
And that's more of what I get from you than necessarily the blowjob. And with everybody else, it's been more of a blowjob.
Okay.
So I'd have to say that really you're the first.
Okay, so you actually, while you like sucking dick, you enjoy the humiliation and the abject domination.
Yes.
As much as or more than you like sucking the dick. I
do not want to admit this out there, but yes. Can you forget all about this episode?
This is such a fun episode.
Yeah. Can we forget that? Can you not listen to this episode over and over again and things like, sometimes you go back?
Well, I always got to re-listen to it just to make sure,
Well, make sure you re-listen to it when I'm not around because I don't want to give you any ideas.
That's way too late for that.
So, yeah,
and then moving on to the basics of giving orders, and we know you like that too.
Oh.
You like to be told to bend over and spread your ass cheeks for me, or really whatever else. Is that something that came naturally to you, or is that something that needed to be ingrained into you when you were a new submissive?
It was something that I did automatically. That's the submissive side of me, because everybody fights about how submissive they are. And I think anybody who wants to be submissive, that enjoys being submissive, they want to be submissive as much as they possibly can. And you want to make sure that you're making the dominant happy. That's just not always possible for some. And then, as a lot of people know, we have a business together. So it's like I got to switch over to this other gear.
I get to see titties all day at work whenever I want to. It's awesome.
And I can give a blowjob anytime I want at the office.
That's true.
But yeah, but I have to wear that other hat. And, actually, I'm learning to even become more submissive at work with employees and everything. I've always been, I think, gracious to them and make sure that they're, happy employees. That didn't come out right, but you know what I mean. So on the other,
I don't know. You start talking about blowjobs.
I know.
You start talking about keeping the employees happy. Fuck, what's going on there that I don't know about? I'm at least supposed to be called into.
Did you see that hot new secretary?
We got a hot new secretary?
Yeah, you didn't see that?
Shit, no, not yet.
I kind of hid her from you as a surprise.
Obviously. You would.
I would. Well, why you be surprised?
One thing Char is always great for is hiring nice pieces of ass to be eye candy whenever we're hiring people for the office.
Well, of course, because I want something good to look at. Oh, I could lick her, and she could lick me, and we could have fun. And that's my attitude. Anyway, we're getting off the subject. So, back to the whole situation is, yes, I think I'm naturally submissive, and so I love to be told what to do and, bend over or whatever, and I've always been like that. But you are different as a dominant than the dominance that I've had in my life prior to you. You are very different, and it was more difficult in some ways because you have this very strange power over me that other dominants just didn't have. And I never, well, there was the one that we talk about it a lot, that.
Douchebag, yeah.
Yes, douchebag. So, but that was almost unsafe for me. You are obviously very safe. And I never have to worry about that. But you also know how to bring out that humiliation in me. And I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with that.
You don't seem to have a very hard time with it.
I do on certain things, but I'm learning. So
the machine gun orgasms seem to indicate that you do all right with the humiliation.
Well, it's the talking humiliation that's hard for me. It's the let's talk about it, and you make me say how much I enjoyed something.
Now, have you ever considered that I do that to you and no other dominant ever has, and you have never-ending machine gun orgasms with me that you never had with any other dominant? Has it occurred to you that perhaps those things might be related?
Yes, it has occurred to me, and I still walk away saying, "Damn him." And I do. And you're laughing all the way. And you are.
So as far as introductory pain play, I suggested, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, pussy spanking as a nice introductory pain play because, you're playing in an area where she's used to having your hands. You mix it in with some pleasure and add just a little bit of pain at a time to see. Basically, there's an easy opportunity if it's something that she doesn't like to find out about it quickly and to find out about it before you've done a whole lot. That's kind of what I tried to focus on today is stuff that is so mild, it's not even deserving of a safe word. The absolute basics and just getting started. Stuff that is close enough to regular enthusiastic sex that really the biggest difference is the mindset of the dominant that they are trying to catalog the desires and habits of the given submissive that they are trying to corrupt shamelessly.
Consistency, when you're talking about that, is another thing. If somebody that's new into being a dominant is if you end up hooking up with somebody and you're doing, dominant submissive relationship even, is to be consistent. You might want to change it up a little bit, but know their levels. And if you're going to increase the level, make sure to do so much at a time. But making sure that they have regular sessions with you, basically. Like you and I, when we are here, it's a no-brainer. You're the dominant, I'm the submissive, and that's the way it is. When we're out in public, I'm still the submissive and you're still the dominant. When we're at the business.
Which I remind you of explicitly at the most inconvenient times.
Yes, you do. And if we're at the business, you're still the dominant and I'm the submissive. Although I have a little bit more leeway there, but it could fall over into a negative if I'm not careful. Because if I'm not submissive enough, it can be very irritating to you and it could have a bad fallout on down the line. So
yes, mostly for you, yes.
Yes. Definitely. But also, we get very busy sometimes, like our workload right now. And so it's important for us to have that consistency. And I think that you really try to do that. You try to keep it that way. If you get away from it, then the tolerance for the submissive could be different. How much pussy spanking, for instance, how hard you can do that might not be the same if you.
Oh yeah, that is very true. I'm glad you mentioned that. Pain tolerance will vary with frequency of a given activity. You know,
right.
For example, if I torture your nipples every day for 2 weeks, I can damn near pull the things off before you're having orgasms. And then if I don't do it if I leave your nipples alone for a couple of weeks, it's like starting to zero on that. So,
correct.
Or starting back at zero. So that is an important thing to mention, that pain tolerance will always go up with frequency that you do any given activity. So the two things that I suggested for absolute beginners are some pussy spanking and some nipple pinching, carefully moderated or mediated or whatever. Yeah. Round like the middle there somewhere. But you have any other particular types of pain play that you think are especially appropriate for beginners?
There's also the paddles and hairbrush.
Yeah, it kind of falls under. I mentioned your kitchen's just full of things that are waiting to be bondage toys. Every once in a while, I'll tell Shara to go in the kitchen and pick something to get spanked with, and regularly she will bring back shit that is way more hideous than anything I would have picked to spank her with, which is kind of nice. It warms my heart. She brings back evil shit to get spanked with.
Notice I'll never bring the electric mixer, okay?
Yeah, I've seen Bachelor Party too many times, and even when I was watching Bachelor Party, I was like, man, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, no.
There's nothing about that that's a good idea. And one thing that you made me think of a minute ago, that I also want to add here is we talk a lot about going slow with kinky play for the benefit of the submissive, for not pushing the submissive too far too fast. But for the dominant, especially a new dominant, it's also important to go one step at a time and kind of find your footing. And you don't want to race headlong into an area where you're not comfortable and you don't feel like you're in control. Because the entire thing revolves around the dominant feeling in control and thus being in control.
And confident.
Yeah, and confident. So if you start to venture into too many things at once where you don't have any experience or you're not confident in what you're doing, it'll end up undermining your overall confidence, and that is going to show, and the submissive is going to see it, and it will, whether she realizes it or not, whether she's an experienced submissive or not, it will affect her attitude towards you.
And part of the way to look at that is when you were growing up and you were going to school and, the teacher would have you practice the vowels, how you get the paper and you have to, when you're going into cursive, you're practicing, or even before cursive, the A's and the B's, and over and over again, they'd have you write the same thing. It's kind of the same thing as when you're becoming a dominant for the first time, is you might want to become very good at one or two things in the beginning, practicing, kind of over and over. There's different techniques, such as you said, with hair pulling, even, whatever you decide to do with her nipples. And
and really any avenue of kinky play can become a discipline in itself.
Mm-hmm.
If you enjoy flogging, different types and weights of floggers with tails made out of different materials, you wield them different ways. So you could make a lifetime out of becoming a master at flogging or a master at nipple torture or something like that. Most dominants are cross-disciplinary, obviously. Most of us will enjoy doing a lot of different things, but we have a few that we really kind of like. And sometimes it's buying one particular toy, because like my flogger, it wasn't until I owned that flogger that I started really having fun flogging. So that was the only flogger I used for probably a couple of years, and I used the hell out of it. And then I started moving into some different toys and, learning some of the different styles that are necessary with heavier and lighter and all the different varieties. But yeah, you can, if you find something you like, you can certainly turn that into a discipline unto itself.
Another perfect tool for a new dominant is the riding crop, the one with the hand that we have. We have a couple of those, I think.
Yes, there are 2 of those and 2 regular riding crops of different lengths and stiffnesses.
But sometimes those are better for a new dominant to start with than even a flogger, because floggers can really do some damage depending on what kind you have and how strong your hand is. Could do a lot of damage if you're not secure or you haven't had much practice in it. But with a crop, it's easier. It's...
Oh yeah, there's not, for one thing, there's not nearly as much mass swinging around with something light like a riding crop or a cane.
Well, it's also a crop has, a very sturdy, I want to say hard handle. So you can gently use it with hardly any force and it's still going to make, nice little slap there for the submissive. So it's something easy for a new dominant to use without worrying. I got to back this up for a minute because I believe, I didn't know you when you first became a dominant, but I can, I know that you were very confident going into it.
What, little old me?
Of course, you were tying girls up at the age when you were 12.
I wasn't 12.
Okay, 11. I'm sorry.
I was like 14.
14. I don't believe you. I bet you was. Yes, but it doesn't. Yes, but you were tying up people that are in their 20s. Anyway.
Well, no, I wasn't doing that till I was at least 16.
Oh, okay. So
I always ran with an older crowd.
Yeah, I know. So did I. But your confidence level was always there, and for the most part, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I used to, they say fake it till you make it. I used to fake it and then I made it, but, if you don't have confidence, the next best thing is being able to fake it while you're trying to figure it out.
And for those that might want to do that and not be as secure, I suggest the floggers can tend to hurt some people. They're all different, like the rose ones, and for instance.
Yeah, and we'll talk when we do the episode on sadomasochism. We'll talk more about floggers and paddles and the different kinds of toys and stuff.
Yeah. So, but a crop is, like I said, the handle is strong and sturdy, and so you have just a little piece on the other end. Usually, whether it's the hand like we have or that other one that.
And it's interesting that you choose to spend so much time talking about riding crops, considering you curl up into a little ball and start whining every time I pull one out.
I do not. Oh. I don't.
You do, too.
I do not.
The whole audience can hear you lying.
I'm not lying.
Your voice goes up an entire octave.
Because I'm a terrible liar. And
I'm not lying. Oh my God.
Stop that. Okay, I admit I'm a terrible liar. Everyone would know I'm a terrible liar. You tell me all the time I cannot lie. So I understand that. However, the thing with the crops for me are that I get very excited and I kind of know how they're going to hit me. When you hit me with them, I know how it's going to feel for the most part.
So is this an official request for more riding crops?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Everybody heard that.
So, okay, next.
You got like 9,000 people listening to you at this point. They all heard you ask for more. So on some future episode, when I spring this on you without warning and trick you into complaining about the riding crop, I'm going to remind you about this.
Okay.
Anything else you'd like to say about, obviously you will probably have, I'm sure you'll have a lot more to say when we do the episodes on submission. Obviously you have never.
Boy, will I.
You have never approached BDSM from the dominance perspective. So I was kind of expecting that you might not be totally comfortable talking about some of this stuff. But, is there anything else you'd like to say for the audience or say to the audience before we move on to birthdays?
Well, again, just you mentioned that you weren't sure how comfortable I'd be talking about it, and it's more of the fact that I haven't had the experience as a dominant to do that as a submissive. Being on the other end, I can say that it's important to see the confidence in the dominant because that means a lot to me. But then again, I've always wanted to be around highly intelligent people more intelligent than me. So I like that. I love knowledge, and to me, knowledge is power, that old saying that they always say. So for me, I kind of like having, somebody that is secure and confident in themselves. So I think most submissives are that way. I think submissives tend to want a dominant that is secure in themselves. So a new dominant, I think, needs guidance a lot of times from another dominant, just as I think submissives need it from a submissive. So I think if you're a dominant out there and you know that you're a good dominant, then I think it's important to take the newer dominants and take them under your wing and guide them.
So the audience is definitely growing. We got a whole passel of birthdays, as my grandpa would have said.
We do. Wow.
Yeah, so we're going to go through these real quick. We have Christina on October 3rd, Laura on October 4th, and Dawn on October 6th. Happy birthday, ladies.
Happy birthday.
Melissa and Hamid on October 12th. Curious Kitty on October 15th.
Curious Kitty. She has been one of our very beginner listeners, and I really want to just really send out a extra special birthday and hoping that, you get those extra special spankings.
Yes, Liam, give her extra spankings for us, please. Rosalind on October 18th, Nikki on October 19th, and I'm going to try not to murder this. Wenzi on October 21st, Mary Rose on October 25th, Corey on the 26th, and then Victoria on October 27th. And Victoria, I had to go to the Google Cyrillic translator, but I was determined to figure out how to pronounce your first name. So happy birthday to all of you. Many happy slaps and lovely spankings and good times, however you may enjoy them.
And if you have kids, still take that husband aside or wife if it's, that you're into the spankings, and make sure you get those proper spankings.
Yeah, birthday is a great time for a little oral in the locked bathroom, even if you got kids.
Exactly. That one goes out to Nikki. Because she was saying, I caught that, Nikki, that you were able to sleep in until 8 o'clock in the morning and the little one wasn't up yet. And then you said, I spoke too soon. So get that time in for yourself.
Yeah, so another quick reminder, we have Shara's Pornoglyph T-shirt sweepstakes. There is a link in the show notes for this episode.
Okay.
That goes back to the Bitch About the Opposite Sex page, and we've gotten a few more fun responses, but we are definitely looking for more. Got until the end of this month. To post your entertaining responses for a chance to win the Pornoglyph T-shirt of size, color, and symbol of your choice.
Are you still working on another symbol?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I thought so.
Well, the new computer, I still need to update my graphics program and get a functional version of my graphics program on the new computer. So
we'll get that going.
I'm a little bit handicapped at the moment.
Well, we'll make sure you get unhandicapped.
So is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we wrap it up?
Just as usual, thank you so much for making the difference by listening and downloading our podcast. And we really appreciate the listening. And if you have anything, questions or comments, please send them in.
Yeah, and especially if as we get through this absolute beginner stuff on dominance and submission, if there's something that anyone would like any particular beginner advice, I'm going to announce as I'm wrapping up the show, all our contact information. But if there's anything specific you'd like some beginner tips on, something that your playmate has expressed an interest in specifically, and it might not be something so common that we get it into the main episode, please feel free to let us know, drop us a line, and we'll be happy to cover a little bit of pretty much any filthy topic that any of you would like to hear about.
And what I really like is we have such a great group of people that either write on the bathroom wall, that have experience. So it's not just you and I. It's our audience is also participating in helping.
Oh, absolutely.
Give helpful hints, and I love that.
We'd love to see audience members giving each other advice because it just brings more of a sense of community, and it also brings more people's advice and experiences into the mix.
Right, because, you and I, we've had a lot of experience with each other and with other people, but there are things out there that we may not have experienced that someone out there has.
Well, you can't possibly get around to all of it. You got to.
I try.
Even if you're trying hard, you can't get around to all of it.
I try, and but it's great to see people take the time out of their day to share that information. I love when I go to the bathroom wall, and I haven't had a lot of chance to write, but I do go and I do take a look at what other people have added. And I think it's great that they're out there offering advice and helpful hints that make the other person go, oh, wow, this one would work for me. This one might not, but this one will. This one might. And it gives them a chance to try those things. So thank you, everybody.
Yep, definitely. And as we got Shara signing off, I just came up with a great idea a couple of minutes ago.
He has this grin on his face. There's one thing about JV that a lot of people may not know, but before he even starts to talk, I know when I'm going to be in trouble, whether it's my choice or his, because I see that grin come across your face.
Well, I had an idea for a new way to sign you off, and I'm going to call my new idea Spanks for the Memories.
Spanks for the memories.
Titties, come on, whip out your titties and get them up by the microphone.
Okay.
No, closer to the microphone. Come on, you're going to have to stand up. Okay, let's see if we can get this. That was Spanks for the Memories. See?
Oh, look what happened there. I'm telling you, it's such a great night. It's been a great weekend. Thank you so much for.
Oh, you're welcome, baby. Pleasure as always. And I'm just going to finish signing off. And why don't you go over there on the couch and wait for me? I'll be back to you in a minute.
All right. Good night, everybody.
So your homework for this episode, should you choose to accept it, is to do something kinky that you've never done before. We're not encouraging any drastic measures, but try venturing outside the realm of your experience, if not outside the realm of your comfort zone. We'd love to hear how it goes and a comment on the website under the post for this homework assignment. As always, please feel free to join our conversation by posting anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvaltheros@gmail.com or jvshara@gmail.com. And you can also find Shara and I on Facebook, FetLife, Twitter, and too many other places, including our FetLife group, all through links on the website at sexualdarkage.com. We always appreciate good ratings and reviews on iTunes, and a whole bunch of you have been giving us some new ratings and reviews, and we thank you tremendously. They really help get the show out in front of more people. My novel is now in final production, so it will hopefully be out within a few weeks, and I'll have some more audio erotica for you guys in the near future. Coming up, we've got more listener mail, a couple shows about sexual submission, and we'll probably be mixing in a kink-related interview somewhere in there. Until next time, this be me, JV Altheros, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.